So I'll start with you. So my first question is that as a openly gay man within media, the media can either serve as one of the biggest adversaries or the biggest allies to, I guess, any movement. And being in the LGBTQ community, and also being an advocate for HIV/AIDS, how do you use your positionality, I guess, to address stigma and discrimination?
Very good. Thank you for that question. So that was what specifically I was going to talk about, which is the power of media visibility of LGBTI persons. So I am a TV host for a morning show in Belize for Sun Upon 7 in the last 3 years. So from the onset of starting on television, I've been an openly gay man. Been an openly gay man since 2008. I was outed, and I think that was a blessing in disguise. And I think reflecting on 13 years now, I can say it's a blessing in disguise. It was nothing easy being able to navigate that journey of healing. However, I am in a place where I am championed by my parents. I have a strong support system. My production team, they support me, and from day one, they were like, Kevin, we want you to be yourself out there. So being on national television allows me a place where I can show visibility of who are LGBTI people, show diversity of the faces of LGBTI people in Belize. I'm sure many people, whenever they think about LGBTI movement in Belize, the first person that comes to mind might be Caleb Orozco. And yes, he's been leading the LGBTI movement in the country. However, there are other persons that are doing meaningful work in Belize. And that's where I come in to complement the work being done by National AIDS Commission, other partners. So being on television allows me to, again, put visibility, put a different face of the LGBTI movement. It also allows me to bring forward conversations in regards to human rights, also to conversations in regards to different language that people might be aware. I know my friend from Jamaica said we have to be very specific on the language that we use whenever we talk about LGBTI movement, human rights. And it allows me also to bring forward present situations. Like for instance, in Belize, at least through the show in the last 3 years, we've had Pride segments in commemoration of Pride in Belize, which is in August. We've had transgender persons being on the show for Trans Visibility Day. And I can say that from those sessions, I've had parents that would reach back and they would message and be like, wow, thank you for that conversation. I was like, for instance, the parent of a transgender young woman reached out and she was like, I did not know how to approach my child, but now that you put forward a transgender person in the show, I am able to identify, what it is to be transgender. I'm able to connect what are some of the challenges that transgender people experience, and I know how to appreciate and love my child. And I think that is transforming if it's just one person. I also feel that during our Pride segments, we've had people that are non-binary that have been on the show, like in the different forms of, especially of art. And I think art is a very important way how we transform healing into our spaces. And I just want to end by sharing so our show is aired via Facebook, YouTube, and cable TV. And Sandra is nodding because her mom is a big fan of the show. So during our Pride segment, we had a poet that was sharing, their piece as regards to what it means to be non-binary, what it means to be themselves. And it was shocking to see one of the comments from one of our viewers who said, God's creation is perfect. We are called to embrace everyone as he made us. Queer children are resilient, navigating a world where being different isn't always easy. We must love all and foster an inclusive and diverse community. And I can say that it has taken 3 years of being visible in the media. It's nothing easy. However, it's a very responsibility that I take to heart. I love what I do, and the fact that there's people that are listening to us, seeing us for who we are, and being able to, be empathetic and attentive and understanding is transformative. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Diana Weeks, in your presentation, you spoke about the necessity of therapy. And particularly you mentioned that the same factors that persons experience that leave them predisposed to contracting HIV often still is exacerbated after diagnosis. So how do you think that institutions or agencies, I guess such as Equals or any other institution that's out there, can actively use psychosocial therapy to assist vulnerable communities?
So one of the first things we need to do is to be able to capture the data. And you cannot create or advocate for interventions if you don't have the statistics. That's the reality. The Minister of Health of Trinidad and Tobago, he made that statement, and it has imprinted itself in my mind. And so I have to applaud Global Fund and other agencies like PANCAP that's allowing the stigma index to be implemented in a number of countries when historically only Jamaica had a stigma index done. However, we need to be able to adapt those mechanisms for the smaller islands. So before we even think about implementing programs, we need to understand what the situation is, what it looks like before we can challenge the stereotypes. Another thing is we need resources. We could say, yes, trauma-informed care, but the reality is our resources are stretched thin, and it brings me back to a conversation we were having when we were doing group discussion, where we need advocacy for resources to be reallocated to the Caribbean. Otherwise, and I said it before and I'll say it again, I don't want to seem like a doomsday prophet. We're going to have challenges later down the road. So, trauma-informed care, there are programs that can be adapted culturally, and CSOs can be resourced to fix or fill that gap that exists in the treatment plan right now. I could speak for Trinidad, I know, and I say this constantly. Trinidad, we offer support for those newly initiated, and we offer support for those lost to follow-up. And we need to recognize HIV is a lifelong disease. And the trauma of getting that result is always compounded by different issues, external discrimination, human rights violations, which compounds the internalized stigma. So we need to reevaluate how we treat even from those entering into the system. HIV is a holistic thing. As I was mentioning to Veronica, if we treat the whole body, then you have no need to tell a patient, take your medication, because a healthy person will want to ensure that they remain that way. But if I have social issues and I don't feel worthy and I feel less than because of this disease, which is compounded by the way others behave and how I am treated and how I am seen, then why do I need to take this medication? People are experiencing real pain, and somehow we are not hearing those voices. And our interventions are minimal. We do enough to check the boxes, but not enough to make real impact in those people's lives. For me, healthcare in the Caribbean is reactive. It's not proactive. So we always wait till it is at a terrible stage. And that doesn't bode well for quality of life. It doesn't give me hope to want to take medication to look forward to another day. So.
Yeah, and I think that's important because even in Barbados, we're still struggling with cases where persons would contract HIV and they deem it as a sort of consequence of the world, and they seek to infect other persons based on that. So that's why
Trauma, anger.
Yeah, it has become like a big part of the equals mandate to ensure that when persons are diagnosed, that they have immediate access to psychosocial therapy.